there, it's Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master, such as
Ezra and Nehemiah by Garphill Games.
Ezra and Nehemiah is a Euro game from Garphill Games, and it's coming to crowdfunding here in the very near future, so make sure to check out that link down below in the description of this video. Now, as you might guess, Ezra and Nehemiah is an Old Testament biblical themed game in which you are going to be recreating the narratives that take place in the books of the Old Testament, Ezra and Nehemiah, in which you are rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. And so the narrative, the theme here is that you are one of the Israelites being brought back into Jerusalem after being in captivity, and you're tasked with rebuilding that wall, as well as sending some Levites to the temple, building up the temple, getting your scribes educated, writing some scrolls, that sort of thing, sacrificing some stuff on the altar, and lots of crunchy Euro decisions to be made in this game. Let's go down to the table. I'll show you how it works, give you a brief overview, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on it. All right, I have Ezra and Nehemiah on the table. Let me show you guys how this Euro biblically themed game is going to work. Now, what you have here, and I do want to make sure you understand everything you see is prototype, final artwork, components, maybe even some of the rules may change once it's released from crowdfunding. But you do have a very large central board. There's going to be lots of different areas on the board, and we'll cover that here real briefly. You're going to have some components that are blocks. You're going to have different meeples. You are going to have different tokens throughout the course of the game. This is bread. That is one of the currencies in the game. You also have money. These are 5 points of money, and we'll show you just all the resources here. You've got money, you've got bread, the different building blocks in the game, and that's pretty much the gist of it. Everybody does have their own player boards as well, and we'll come back to this here in just a minute. So basically with this game, you are going to be balancing a number of different actions throughout the course of the game, trying to get the most points as kept track on this score track that goes around the center of the board. Now, what you have here thematically, you've got the wall of Jerusalem that is being built, as is the case during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah in the Bible. And you also are going to have scholars who are working on studying and writing scripts. You also are going to be building up the temple, sending your Levites, who are priests that are going to be sacrificing things on the altar, increasing you down this track right here. You're also going to be moving your tent around this circle, gaining resources, and building up the wall as we speak, as the game goes along. Now, in this game, you do set it up a little bit differently depending on player count, and what you see here is the player count for 2, and so the game will change based off of your player count. Now, how a round is going to work, everybody's going to have their own deck of cards in their player color, and you will shuffle this up, and you will have a number of cards in your hand, and choosing one out of the cards that are in your hand, you are going to play it for the banners that are listed here on the left. Now, the top banner is the most important banner, as that is going to be a banner that you might get to continue to use throughout the course of the game, depending on which one you tuck at the end of a round. But you're going to get all of the banners on the card. So this banner right here would be worth 3 gray, whereas this one right here is 1 of each. There are 3 different colors, gray, blue, and red, and the colors correspond to the actions that you can do. So you're going to choose one of the cards, and you will be playing it into one of the slots on your board. You have 3 slots here on the bottom of your board, and it doesn't matter which slot you play into, but you are going to want to cover up all the slots, and once all your slots are filled up, then you will be playing a card on top of a card that you've already played, and you can only ever have a maximum of 2 cards in each slot. So you will be playing 6 cards in a round, 2 on each spot. And whatever banners are showing, that's going to tell you the strength of the action that you're allowed to do. And again, you can pick gray, blue, or red. So let's cover what those different options are for you. We'll start with the gray. So if this is my arrangement right here, I have 4 gray banners showing, and that is the strength that I can do. Now, gray corresponds to building up the wall, which are these spots around the edge of the board. And as you can see, there's lots of different ones, and the number of spots that are available to you are going to be dependent on the number of players in the game, as you are going to put up up sections of the wall that are already built if you're playing in lower player counts. Now, what you can do with your action points for gray, you can remove these blocks from a particular section of the wall. And so the gray or the brown bricks are going to cost 2 to remove, as are the white ones. The black ones are only going to cost 1 to remove because they're not as valuable as the brown or the white. Now, the yellow ones are gold, and those are going to cost 3 action points to remove. So you can remove blocks that are on a particular spot, and once you've removed all the blocks on a spot, you are going to earn the blessing that is printed on that spot, if there is one. So in this one in particular, this is an orange blessing, and how you keep track of blessings, you will move the corresponding blessing token 1 space over, and what this is going to do, once you have all of the blessing markers moved over to the same column, so in this case we've got all of them to column 1, then you're going to gain the benefit that's printed there above that column, and we'll cover what those are here in just a minute. But that's the idea with the gray ones. You're removing these cubes, and then also on top of that, when you have a number of cubes that match what you see here in a spot that is open, you can spend those cubes plus a number of action points to be able to build this section of the wall. And when you do that, you are going to take 3 of these mini-sized cards. You'll look at your top 3 and you'll choose one to play, and this is going to give you an immediate benefit as well as a number of victory points printed on that card, and you will just leave that card right there showing that you have built that section of the wall. Now that's what gray is going to let you do for the most part. We'll go to blue next, that's going to be about the scholars over here, the scribes, who are learning and writing different parts of the Bible or the Old Testament. And what you're doing in this, you're going to be spending a number of blue action points, as well as either money or gold, depending on how high up this ladder you're going to go. And you do have to start on the bottom and work your way up. And whenever you spend this, you're going to pick one of the options that are available to you in that row. And so the bottom row here is going to get you Ezra, Nehemiah, or Zerubbabel. And whenever you do one of these, you will place one of your meeples out here. In a 2-player game, you're going to have some neutral ones already covering up some spots here. But then you will take the corresponding card that matches that particular person. So in this case, we just gained Nehemiah. And if it was the first round that we did this in, we would gain whatever's here. Second, we'd gain there. Third and final round, we're going to gain whatever's printed there. And so that's the bottom section. But as you work your way up, you're going to get benefits that might be ongoing bonuses for you or in-game points, depending on what you're doing throughout the course of the game. And you do have to kind of go up a ladder on this. And so, for instance, if I wanted to go here, one of these 2 spots would have needed to have a meeple already on it. Doesn't have to necessarily be my own, but I could not just go straight there. We would have to work our way up that. And the first person that goes to one of these is going to get free bread, as well as victory points at the end of the game. Now, you can also use your blue action points if you don't want to do this mess. You can go around the tent circle, moving your tent a number of spaces, depending on how many action points you're willing to spend, as well as these building block cubes. And you're going to gain resources as you move around this track. And those resources are going to allow you to earn more workers. They're going to allow you to get money, gold, bread. Bread is very important in this game. Or maybe move you down this track right here, which we'll cover this next, as this is part of the red actions that you can do. So I mentioned that there are gray, blue, and red actions. So red actions are going to let you build up the temple, send your workers over here to become Levites, and sacrifices at the altar to move you down this track. So let's cover the temple real quick. Spending a number of red action points and either gold, white, or brown blocks to this section over here is going to earn you a number of victory points, either 1 for white or brown, or 2 for the gold, as well as other resources, depending on how many red action points you spend. But what's also important about this is when these sections fill up, and this board does change depending on player count, when the different sections fill up, you're going to take a look at this track down here, and these are your Levites, and you're going to be spending a number of bread tokens to send some of your workers over here, and they will be here for the rest of the game. You won't have as many worker tokens anymore, but when you get over here, you're going to gain resources resources, but then when these sections fill up, you're going to see who has the most workers down here, and they're going to get victory points. Whoever has the fewest is going to lose victory points, and you will also earn money based off of how many Levites you have in this section. So you do want to put Levites over here when these sections fill up. Now, the other thing you could do is to make sacrifices at the altar. You're either going to be sacrificing your brown cubes, which is wood, or your cinder black cubes. Now, you do have to spend a number of red action points when you do this, but you're also going to earn these tongues of flame, which are going to move your little markers down this track, and you will gain resources as you move down the track. But really what you're trying to do here is you're trying to make sure that you're at least ahead of this guy, as denoted by what's on this card right here. And this changes, this is variable setup. So you want to stay ahead of this guy, and maybe if you're able to, get ahead of even this guy, because if you're not ahead of this guy after the first round, you're going to lose whatever's printed here. If you're in between these two, you'll gain what's here, but if you're past this one, then you're going to gain what is right here, which in this case is any blessing. And again, those blessings are going to move you on these tracks right here. Now, these markers are going to move further and further down the line through the second and third rounds, and the penalties and rewards are going to become bigger and bigger as the game progresses. So you do want to make sure you're keeping up on this track. This is also a tiebreaker. If the number of Levites is tied over here, you're going to see who's further along on this track. Now, those are the main actions that you'll be doing on your turn. Playing a card, going off the banners, choosing gray, blue, or red for your actions. But there are some other side things that you can be doing on your turn. You can be taking these trades down here that are on the bottom of the cards that you just played, such as, for instance, paying a number of money for bread, because also on your turn, what you're going to be able to do, you're going to be able to use your workers. You're going to have so many workers on a turn, and you can use a worker to play in one of these spots up here, performing another trade action, such as gaining a brick and a bread, or you can increase the number of action points that you have for that action that you're trying to do that turn. Now, you can develop and increase these different tiles by paying the cost at the top here, earning whatever benefits in the green, and then getting to flip the tile over. And as you can see, that increases the number of things that you receive when you put a worker in these spots to take the action. But when you place these workers, you will have to be able to pay bread to feed them at the end of the round. Each worker is going to cost bread for you, and so the number of workers that you get throughout the course of the game just means the more bread that you're going to need to be able to pay to feed them. So those are the things that you're doing in the game. Playing a card, putting a worker in one of these spots to gain extra stuff to use on that turn, maybe gaining some blessings to move yourself down these tracks, taking trades throughout the course of your turn, and ultimately doing an action out here on the board, building up the wall, getting more scribes, moving your tent, going down this track, building up the temple, putting out Levites. All of that is going to ultimately conclude with you getting points going around this track. And after 3 generations, and what that means is after you've played 6 cards down here, that's going to be the end of your round. Everybody's taking one turn, going around clockwise order, and that's going to end the generation, and then you'll repeat the whole process again. Now, when you end a generation, I mentioned that what's going to be most important are these banners here in the top left. You're going to choose one of the cards that you've played on your board, and you will tuck that underneath this separate player aid, and you'll reveal the top left banner. Now, that left banner is going to also count towards all the banners that are on your player board. So if this is the one I have tucked, I'll have a red banner that I can count towards every red action that I do there forward throughout the rest of the game. But on top of that, taking a look what's printed right here, these will be in-game points for me because I've tucked this card away for the banner as well as the in-game scoring option. And this particular one here says for every orange blessing that I have at the end of the game, I'll receive 1 extra victory point. Now you'll have more than one card tucked away here, and you'll get to count all of those for your banners as well as your victory points at the end of the game. But ultimately, that is the gist here with Ezra and Nehemiah. It's not a full rules explanation. You definitely will want to watch a how to play video, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of how this game is played. Now, let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one. All right, so there you have it. That is Ezra and Nehemiah. Brief overview on how it works. Now we're going to share our thoughts on it. I'll start and say, Jeremy, this is the class, like all of the greatest hits of Garphill Games kind of mashed into one game, because you've got lots of bits and pieces from some of their excellent games, the West Kingdom series of games, and you kind of find it all in one game here.
Yeah, I think this one has a lot of mechanics that are similar in those games. They've taken them, they've blended them really well together, such as when you're playing your cards on your board, you're going to use those icons that you can see on the top card. That's a lot like Viscount whenever you're using those symbols to go on the right or go and send people into the castle or move around the board on that rondel. Now, you will have a little bit of paladins as you're gaining workers by doing different actions. You can get those workers to use. You can also play your wall cards. You're going to draw 3. You're going to play one on the board, and then you'll put one on top, one on the bottom. That's how you play your cards and paladins. And a big feel of the game is like Architects, where you're getting, you're placing those workers out on the board, and they're no longer to be used.
Right.
But the trade-off is you are going to have to feed everybody except for the Levites. So that you're always constantly thinking, I got to get bread, because if I don't get bread for each person, I'm going to be losing 2 points a person, and you don't want that to happen. So really managing that euro, getting the bread, getting the resources you need so that you can take these actions, because those banners are really going to matter. You can place workers there to gain more, but you have to feed them. So you have to balance, when do I use them, when do I save them for food, and if you upgrade those tiles, that can help you to efficiently get more resources, or even get a passive ability of gaining that food to spend later. As far as replayability, there's quite a bit of replayability. Yes. I played every player counts, and I can tell you that each game has felt different. Now, I will say, personally, I think you do have to play into the altar track and using those red banners, because otherwise you're going to be getting penalized. One set of the variations, there are currently, from the pre-production copy we have here, there are 2 of these cards, and both are double-sided. Now, one will have to do with getting or taking food, but the one that we just played has to do with blessings, and we both shot up to the end of the track.
Yeah.
If you ever can't take them, then you would move your tent around. So this one, as you can see, is going to be gaining or losing points. This one looks pretty tough, because if you don't get to the end, you're definitively losing points.
You're losing a lot of points.
And there's another one in that the profits will start at different regions or numbers on the board, which determines how far you need to move up. So that's really cool. Building in the temple, you want to chain that so that you're the last one to place there, and hopefully you've been paying to put the Levites here, because they also act as banners for you. So there's a really nice balance in the actions. The scroll here,
there's a lot of replayability here.
Because those middle scrolls, there's quite a few of them, so you'll see some that you haven't seen in other games, and wherever they come out on this chart is going to make a big deal, because you may have a row that people don't really want to hit, especially in a 2-player game, and so that may not get utilized as much, whereas if you have 3 or 4 people, or certain tiles come out which keep you from having to feed people, those are pretty good tiles to jump on. And if you can get to the top, you are going to be able to maximize that scoring, but you can also use those to move your tents around to help boost different things that you may need in the game. The hardest part, I think, is clearing the rubble. You had a bunch of banners in our last game, and really tried to go after that wall strategy again. It's one of those games where you've got to balance all 3. You want to dab a little bit, but you want to go heavy into one. Yeah. But you don't want to really neglect, because I got those 3 extra points. I neglect
the scrolls. I don't care about intelligence, and
I got those 3 extra points, but I saved 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 food throughout the game. Yeah. So
there's just a lot of ways.
Strategies.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to find your strategy in this game, as is the case in a lot of Garphill games that they've come out with over the years. But I feel like this one takes it to the nth degree, because you're not only finding ways to kind of, like with the scrolls, like you just talked about, negating your food costs throughout the game, but you've got the trade actions that you can do on your cards. You've got these trades actions that you can do up here where you're placing workers. But everything that you do, as is the case in great Euro games, it requires you to manage your resources. It requires you to keep in mind that there may be that penalty later on if you're not playing great with your resources, if you don't have enough food, if you don't have enough money, if you don't have enough the building blocks you need to build up the wall at the right particular time that you're taking these actions. So this is a brain burner in every sense of the word. And for me, this one really kind of highlighted what I like about Garphill Games, because you're really weighing out every single little detail of your move. I mean, everything has to be extremely calculated in this particular game. And so if you're somebody out there that you've enjoyed the West Kingdom series, or if you've just enjoyed just how meticulously detailed Garphill Games tend to be, I think you're really going to like this one, because I think this game here just kind of brings that to the next level.
Yeah, the symbology is a little bit different in this one than most of those games, but it's pretty easy to understand as you're going, especially if you have played Garphill Games. This one was illustrated by Shim's brother Sam Phillips, and it looks just amazing, I
think this is my favorite artwork.
Just like he's done in, Hadrian's Wall and the Strigadian series. So it's great in that art aspect. I'm not 100% sure, but knowing Garphill, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some coins in this Kickstarter video page that you're looking at. Who knows? You're going to have to check that out. But this is a really good one. If you're wanting something that's, personally, I think this is a step above Viscount, right? Almost to that Paladins level. I think Paladins is slightly heavier than this.
I would agree with that.
But I feel like it's more than Viscount. You're going to be making these complex decisions on which card. And at times you want to play both of them, but you play the one so you can do that trade ability. Or you play the one that has the gray banner so you can maybe set up for a later turn, versus the blue banner because you're Lance and you neglect scrolls.
Or maybe you're also looking at this end game, the end game victory points, and you really need to get that card out because maybe it's coming down to the end of the generation and you don't have that card out on your board and you're not going to be able to tuck it for the points. So
yeah, because if you don't play it on your board, you can't tuck it because in the first round we said you're tucking one, second round you're tucking two, and scoring when you tuck them.
Yeah.
And the last round you're scoring one more. So if you set this up and you didn't play that card in the round, well,
you're out of luck.
You're going to have to pick a different one.
Yeah.
Not like it's going to be a huge difference, but that's 1 or 2 points usually each round because you're usually maxing them at 6 unless you get a wall card.
That wall card, and you've gone heavy into walls.
10 walls, well, then that's going to be more than your blessing cards or your upgrade or Levites or your altar track cards. So a lot of great things in this one, from artwork to components. As you can see, I believe everything here is pretty close to final. Garphill usually does a great job with that. Not a whole lot of changes. You may even see some promos in the campaign. I don't know. But we're just playing this before. But we can definitely recommend that this is going to be one that if you're watching this or checking it out, you need to pay close attention because this is a really good one. It plays well at all player counts.
Yes.
I can tell you solo. I even soloed it. It was fun solo. It's not the type of solo that I really like, but I can see a lot of people are really diving in and liking this one. I would recommend playing on the more difficult one, especially if you played the game after you get this and you play the game. Go ahead and go solo on the 2 flames. It's going to be much more competitive and it's going to be a closer game, whereas I feel like if you're playing well because you know how to play the game, you're going to run away a little bit by about 20 points or so on the easy mode. So definitely ramp it up to that more difficult mode and really test your skills. But yeah, there's a lot of variability. 2-player worked well as also. I prefer probably 3. I think 3 is super strong because you have people playing off of each other. But you also, it's not too long and congested. Usually I like really tight games. This one, I still like the 4-player game, but personally, I like the 3-player game a little bit better because you had that playing off, whereas in 2-player, you can neglect each other more often, and you're just focused on your gates and your walls, where in a 3-player, somebody's accidentally or benefiting you occasionally. In a 4-player game, you're still getting those benefits, but it is going to be a little bit longer. And if people aren't used to these type of games, it's going to be a little bit longer. So.
Yeah, for sure.
But all great player counts from 1 to 4. Definitely, if you're a solo gamer, check it out. If you like 2-player, check it out. 3, definitely check it out. 4, check it out.
The last thing I'll say about the game is that I feel like, and you might be asking this yourself, is this any different than any of the other Garphill games out there? Because if I have, the West Kingdom series, do I need this game? And I'll tell you, I think this game is different. I think it adds, like I've said, another layer to another level of complexity, and not complexity, but like in terms of brain burniness. It's not heavier than a lot of the other games, but it's definitely one that you have to really think through your turns a lot more so than maybe you did in some of the other West Kingdom games. Or at least that's how I feel like.
And Garphill is usually known about taking a game and flipping a new mechanic and doing that. Yeah. I don't think they necessarily did that per se. They took a lot of things they did and tweaked them to create a unique experience. The Ultra Track may be the most unique thing about it, I think, and that's because you're trying to get above or in between these two moving profits.
It's a constant stressor having to manage this and make sure you're not behind this guy right here. So yeah, that adds attention to the game.
I mean, that to me is the most probably unique thing, and the difference with the cards there. There's an upgrading of your board and things like that you do in a lot of games, and I think they just took Shim and them took things that they do well in games, and they slightly tweaked them and blended them together very well together.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you have it, guys. That is Ezra and Nehemiah from Garphill Games. It is coming to crowdfunding, so again, make sure to check out that link down below in the description of this video now that you've watched it. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master. We'll catch you next time.
We'll see ya.